Hello, welcome to the Perfect Child Podcast. Hi, Emily. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for agreeing to this. This is going to be a very exciting interview. I'm going to start with your bio. Dr. Emily Spaeth is a trailblazer in the world of pregnancy, birth, postpartum, and newborn care. As the founder and CEO of Be Well Baby, Emily brings a unique blend of expertise as a doctor of physical therapy, certified neonatal therapist, yoga teacher, and seasoned perinatal professional. Her journey began in the NICU, where she recognized a profound gap in holistic peripartum care. In response, she combined her skills and background to create a comprehensive approach for birthing people and their babies. Emily is the creator and lead facilitator of the Beyond Birth Blueprint and believes everyone should have access to thoughtful and thorough birth and postpartum education. In her spare time, she brings 1 to 3 of her kiddos with her to CrossFit. All right, so let's begin. The reason why I have asked you on to this podcast today is because I want to hear about consent with babies.
I am so excited about this topic. This is one of the things that I teach my students the most about for
Mhm.
both adults and babies. But
Mhm.
I think, especially with babies, it is a topic that can be a little confusing.
Absolutely. I feel like, m as parents or just people in general, we tend to forget that babies are whole beings.
Yeah, they're whole little humans in there.
Right. And they understand everything that's going on, which is
Yeah,
really kind of like, wait, what?
I know. I know. I think, I working in the neonatal ICU, I saw babies who were born as early as 23 weeks. And I I always had this sense that, these babies are already in there. They already have their personalities at a certain point. And it's almost has nothing to do with anything that we're doing. They just are who they are already. And to see that even before a baby was supposed to be born just really solidified my understanding of how babies are in the world and how babies are fully there, fully embodied inside their little bodies, um, from the time that they are actually still inside of us.
So I want to go back then to your experience of that in the NICU. I would say is maybe, I mean, I don't know that many birth professionals, but might be isolated to you and
Mm.
your consciousness. So
Mm.
how did you get there?
How did I get to the NICU?
No, how did you get to that consciousness of being
Mm.
able to recognize that this baby is a whole being?
Yeah. Well, I think that, I would see 8 to 10 babies in one day. And when you are a birth professional, when you are working with families and babies, you're usually working with the same baby or maybe at most seeing two different babies in the same day. And it's easy to forget, I think, that each of these babies is so unique. I would say though that there are so many amazing birth professionals out there who know this already, but maybe not who have seen it from the in utero time. And I think when I worked in the NICU, I worked so closely with the families and understanding baby's sensory development was one of the biggest things that I had to do in my job. So every single week of development from the time the baby is born is important. And that counts at 22 weeks, 23 weeks, 24 weeks. And after 20 weeks, babies can hear us. So it's not that they understand our words. I think it's a misconception that people are like, you know, babies can't really understand us. It doesn't matter that they don't understand the words we're using. They understand our prosody, which is like the rhythm, the music in our voice. They understand the tone and they understand the intention behind our voice. And I think all of us who have ever been in a country where we don't speak the language can understand that. You know, you you don't need to know what someone is saying to understand their intent.
And this really brings up that there's a tendency in our society where we carry fear.
Mm,
And so you can imagine a lot of the babies that come into this world having this understanding energetically or whatever, taking in that fear and being
mhm.
confused as to why is there fear.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think with birth in general, and especially with birth, in the medical system that we have, can be really scary for the birthing person, especially if they're not prepared, which is, like you said in my beautiful bio, thank you, by the way, um, was it's the reason that I started Beyond Birth because there doesn't need to be fear, And I think if we can approach birth with so much knowledge and understanding of what could happen, then there doesn't need to be any fear. And or fear is okay, but understanding that there are ways to move through it and that fear can be healthy. Fear can mean that we understand birth as a really reverent thing
Yes.
and that being born is really hard and challenging
Yeah.
and that amazingly now there are so many professionals that can help your baby adjust after they're born to the wild and whimsical world that they live in with gravity holding them down and louder sounds and, fear, even just with what's going on in the world. Having babies are so receptive, they're so permeable. And, it's really common for me to work with a family where the birthing person is anxious
Yes.
and the baby is crying all the time.
Yes.
And it's sort of a chicken or the egg, you don't
Yeah.
know. Like, is it
Right.
because the birthing person is anxious that the baby
Yeah.
is upset, or is it the other way around?
Yeah.
And it almost doesn't matter. But if we can kind of tamp down one or the other,
Yeah.
and I'll take a deep breath, then
Yeah.
it can be really, really powerful.
Yeah. And the more that I interview people in the birthing space, I feel like because I'm always thinking about ways that we could change our education system. And I feel
Mm.
like it would be so powerful if teens had access, if it was part of the school curriculum to really learn about birth
Oh my
and really
gosh,
understand.
I want to teach the teenagers about sex and birth.
It's so important, boys and girls,
Hmm.
because we go into it and we have no clue
Yeah,
because it's not taught to us. It's not, we don't have villages anymore. And a
right.
lot of cultures, I feel like my culture, Chinese, no one was like, oh, you're going to give birth now. And these are the things that are going to happen. Like, it's kind
Yeah.
of like we don't talk about it because it's shameful or
Hmm.
I don't know. And
Yeah.
so it'd be so useful and powerful
And
to
another thing that I
change.
think would be really helpful is not only to understand like really true sex education and true birth education on the younger scale, but
Mhm.
also parenting education,
Yes.
because it is not fair that we don't learn some of the self-regulation skills that you need as a parent.
Yes. Yes. And also, again, that would be a great time in our teen years to learn about
Mhm.
self-regulation,
Ooh,
right?
world changing.
Okay, I feel like we're gonna have to do this. You and
Okay,
I are
I'm
gonna
ready.
create this online accessible
Amazing.
curriculum. Okay, good. Now, let's go back to talking about consent with babies.
Okay.
What does that look like?
So it's interesting because when you talk about infant development, there are all these milestones, right? And one of the first things that I notice in a newborn is that they will begin to quiet or still when they hear a familiar voice. So I can come in as a new person and talk to the baby, and they're like, I don't know you. And then their birthing person says something to them, or even the partner says something to them, and they are immediately like, oh, okay.
Attuned.
I hear my person. I hear my comforting voices that I've been hearing since 20 weeks in utero. I'm safe. And the biggest thing that I look for in babies is their body language because that's kind of all we have. I have this amazing picture of my hand on a baby and then my hand on a different baby, and the babies are completely different. So
Mhm.
I'm looking at the color of their skin. I'm looking at their eye contact. I'm looking at physically, does it look like they're moving away from me or towards me? And I think those are kind of the biggest things for parents to look for, that
Mhm.
especially if a baby is arching away from you, if their eyes are moving away from you, they're letting you know not that they don't want to be touched. I think that's
Mhm.
also a misconception,
Mhm.
but they're letting you know that whatever is happening is overwhelming their nervous system and they actually are physically incapable of coming into flexion, which is where they should be as a newborn.
Okay. That's really useful knowledge.
Yeah. I mean, I
And
can keep
then,
talking about all the signs. There's so many.
yeah,
But
please
there's
do.
more. Another thing to think about with because this is just that was just, the newborn moment,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
But in a 4 month old, for example, or a 3 month old, by then they're smiling, they're looking at you, they're
Mhm.
engaging, and they will even respond to their name potentially by this age.
Mhm.
And understanding that their receptive language skills are unbelievably more advanced than we ever give them credit for. So I think approaching a baby like they can understand every last word you say is always the right way to start.
Mhm. Mhm.
So they will even between 4 and 6 months really start to understand a routine. And that makes them so um, attuned and so comfortable and feel so safe in what they're going through.
Mhm.
And I think that it's almost easier to think of gaining consent from a 6 to 9 month old because you can put your hands out and they will reach out for you and clearly be asking you to pick them up. But if you
Yes.
think about a newborn,
Mhm.
one of the ways that I start to approach a newborn is first by talking to them and then noticing like will they attune to me? Will they turn towards me? Will they turn their body or their head? And will they
Mhm.
look me in the eye? And
Mhm.
that might be the first thing that I'm doing, even though I'm trying to, assess their neck range of motion, for example.
Mhm. Mhm.
And maybe I'll even let them know, like, I'm just going to put my hand on your chest. And then I'll move my head to the side to see, will they turn their head? And maybe I can assess their range of motion while they're looking me in the eye. And then I'll always say out loud what I'm going to do. And I think
Mhm.
that is a big piece of gaining consent from your baby
Yeah.
because you're also then establishing the language skills that they will have in
Mhm.
order to communicate back with you.
Yes.
I also use a ton of sign language. And it's not that I'm fluent in ASL, but I use it because babies have a really, clear trajectory of gross motor and fine motor skill.
Mhm.
And speaking is a
Mhm.
fine motor task that they actually can't do at a certain point, even if they
Right.
have the words to communicate it. So
Okay,
if you
right.
give them a sign to do something like diaper, so diaper is these are like the little pins of a diaper and you put it
Mhm.
right where the diaper goes on the
Mhm.
hips.
Mhm.
And so if you teach them, I'm going to change your diaper, then they can start to associate that
Oh my
so clearly. And they will
Yes.
know, they'll start to touch their diaper, you know. Um,
Oh
but
my
it's something
gosh.
that you have to do from the very start.
Yes.
Babies don't
Yes.
learn language or signs or anything just because you did it once.
Right. That's so exciting. That literally changes parenting.
Yeah,
Because yes, when we like I can remember back when my child was a baby and we're like, okay, well let's teach her more or milk, like what do you like the eating, but like even before then,
before that.
we could have been doing that. And
Yeah.
no, of course, when I changed her diaper, I never we just picked her up and changed her diaper. Oh, you're wet, picked her up.
hmm
But like we could be
hmm
talking to them.
hmm And I think something that parents don't understand about newborns is that as an adult, your brain is moving so fast. It processes input unbelievably quickly. Your eyes process input very quickly. And when you're a newborn, your brain actually doesn't process touch quickly. It processes touch very slowly. So, using deep pressure on your baby
Yes,
rather than like a light tickling touch is
yes.
so much more reassuring for a baby. And
Interesting.
they can feel what you're doing with their
Yes,
body
yes.
so much more. And then if you're moving them, for example, you just like pick them up to go change their diaper. If you move them quickly, their brain can't process where they are. and it can be really overwhelming. It doesn't mean that they will tell you right away. They might not cry. They might not
No.
do anything. In fact, they might shut down and it will look like you have a very calm baby. And it's actually that they have shut their brain down so that they don't have to be overwhelmed.
And then I think back to the stories where, like, my mom friends would say, "Oh my gosh, I literally have to like hold my baby down in order to change their diaper." They're totally like kicking and screaming.
Yes.
Now we know why.
Yeah, because they have been already throughout their lives. Like, this is the most overwhelming sensory
Yes.
experience of my life. And I haven't actually had a chance to process what's happening. And I think one of the biggest mistakes that's made in early parenting is your newborn is screaming bloody murder and you just rush your way through that diaper change because you got to
Right.
get through it.
Right.
And I say this having been the parent who did that, even after knowing this stuff. So it's like you can't be
Stress is
perfect.
real.
It's real. And like, I also, of course, like we all have our own little sensory idiosyncrasies. Screaming babies, really, really challenging on my nervous system. Other people's screaming babies, totally fine. Not a
Yeah.
problem. My
Right.
own personal screaming babies, couldn't handle it, you know?
Oh my gosh.
Because we are biologically wired to keep this baby alive and
Yes.
happy. And
Yes.
when they're screaming, they're communicating with us. And I think that's another thing that is really challenging for parents that, like, in the middle of that diaper change, taking a deep breath and just stopping what you're doing, giving your baby containment so that firm, deeper pressure, even keeping their little legs flexed, keeping their arms together at their chest, and just breathing for a moment and saying, I know this is overwhelming for you. And maybe even offering them something to suck on, like your pinky or a pacifier, if that's something that you're using, so
Yeah.
that they can self regulate and realize this position on my back with gravity pulling me everywhere is okay. My person
Yeah.
has me. I'm
Yeah.
safe.
Yeah.
And maybe I could be calm, you know? And part of it is it takes time to unwind the body after birth, you know? The arms
Yeah.
and legs have to unwind. And there's this back and forth between wanting to be flexed because that's the safest, most comfortable position, and then also allowing gravity to sort of unwind the body.
Yeah. I'm
Mm,
hearing now, having children is so transformative in so many ways.
absolutely.
And the way that you're describing how we meet our newborns really requires us to slow down.
It
And
does.
that is what the world is asking for, is
Mm,
for
yeah.
everyone to slow down. And this is where this education comes in to know
Hmm.
that like these heavier touches to our baby, the
Hmm.
rhythm, the slowing down and speaking to them, and understanding that every time we lift them up, they're totally discombobulated because their minds don't move so fast. So, how can we
Hmm.
move slower? How can we be slower? Like
Yeah.
every mother, when she gives birth, needs to at least have those 40 days to sit in, be with the baby,
Mm,
and slow down.
yeah.
Like
I think that's
literally
so hard.
just, but it's necessary. Like
Hmm.
we can't make excuses for that anymore. We
Yeah.
cannot.
Yeah. In my program, I teach the partner what they should do. And
Mm,
the biggest piece is that the person who birthed a baby should not be getting up to do anything except for meet her own needs and the baby's needs. And if that person is having to get up and go downstairs and cook for anyone, even herself or themselves,
right.
that is it's not the point of after having a baby. Your job as the partner is to care for the birthing person so that they can learn their baby and so that they can learn to feed their baby, whatever that looks like. And arguably, if there is more time in skin to skin postpartum, if there
Yes.
is more time for that getting to know each other without people coming in, without guests and appointments and all of these things. This is why we do home visits at Be Well Baby, because we don't want you to leave your
Right.
house in the first 6 weeks
Right. Right.
or longer if we can help it, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's yeah, I think there's something really, really challenging about living in our society and feeling like you should get up and get working. And, as a physical therapist, I'm always reminding people that I don't want your muscles to atrophy in these 40 days. Like there are really, really simple and effective things that you can do just in your bed. You don't even have to get out of bed.
Right.
And most of it is working on coming back to your breath because your diaphragm and all of your organs have this new place to be. So
Yeah.
it's a lot of
Yeah.
learning for your body and having time to connect with your baby and get to know them is everything.
Everything, everything for the development of this baby.
Yeah.
And let's not forget, birthing is a really tough process. And you're talking about the organs. All the organs are all moved around and shifted. And why aren't we giving women the time
Yeah.
to recover?
Yeah. Yeah.
That
It's
is just
wild.
not okay.
And when I talk to people who are having a hard time with slowing down, I remind them, I'm not asking you to do less for right now. I'm asking you to do less so that when you're 70, you're not peeing yourself. It's very simple. And I think it's really hard. I say this all the time. Prevention isn't sexy. What I do isn't that hot because like people really are just wanting to solve a problem and then get back to whatever else it is. And what I'm asking people to do when they prepare with me prenatally is slow down, figure out what's most important,
Yeah.
get good at the basics, get good at drinking water and moving your body and tuning into what your intuition is telling you, building that village that you were talking about, and
Yeah.
figuring out like, are you eating well enough to support your body?
Right.
All of these things, drinking enough water, getting enough
Yeah.
sleep.
Yeah.
It's the basics that all of us wish we were good at,
Yeah.
that I also struggle with, you know,
Yeah.
and that we have to figure out ways and tools and strategies to be able to do that so that we can then turn to our newborns
Yeah.
and look at them and actually say, what do you need? And maybe your baby is crying on the changing table because they have a tummy ache. They're about to poop or I had a baby like this. One of my babies, every time I put her on the changing table, she would scream and I would be like, what is wrong? And I might like pick her up even
Mhm.
naked and then she would pee all over me. And what she was letting me know was, yo, I'm about to pee. So you should probably do something about this. Like,
Yeah.
and I think having the wherewithal to respond to that communication because
Mhm.
parents are afraid of crying. It's
Yeah.
scary. You don't know
Yeah.
why.
Yeah.
And I think just reminding yourself that you love your baby, they're safe, and they're trying to communicate with you. So let's
Yes.
figure out what they're trying to say.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the key point is they're trying to communicate with us. The baby is communicating with us at all times,
Yeah.
right? So that's
Hmm.
the consent part. And do you have any other small tips about consent? Like
Oh, yes,
just
so many.
asking.
So, one of the things that I like to do is I teach a lot of infant massage. And one of the tools that I use for infant massage specifically is I bring the hands together and then I rub them back and forth to warm them.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll even show them to the baby, maybe wiggle my fingers. Depending if the baby's old enough, maybe 3 months or older, they might even reach out and grab one of those wiggly fingers
Uh-huh.
and bring it towards them. And for
Mm-hmm.
me, that's a really clear indication that they're like, I'm ready. You can touch me with your wiggly fingers.
Yeah.
And if they're a newborn, sometimes they're like, I don't care about your wiggly fingers, but I still do it because I want myself to get in the habit of doing that with the baby
Mm-hmm.
so that over time they realize this cue. They will learn this cue way faster than you think. And I have had multiple clients over the years come back to me and say, oh, yeah, my 1 year old puts her hands together and rubs them back and forth when she's asking for a massage.
Oh, that's the sweetest.
I
A
know.
1 year old.
Yeah.
Oh
And
my
and this
gosh.
is like the ability to communicate back and forth
Yeah.
is so powerful with your baby. I That's why I actually have a ton of ASL American Sign Language inside Beyond Birth because
Okay, great.
learning those
Yeah.
signs, you can't just learn them once, teach them once. You
Right.
have to use them consistently before your
Yes.
baby would ever be able to do them if they're
Hmm.
going to learn them.
Now, yes.
So,
Do you recommend that people massage their babies
oh my gosh, yes.
often? Okay.
I do. And in fact, there are so many incredible benefits to infant massage. Most of the studies are done in the neonatal ICU
Mhm.
because these are babies who are hospitalized and they can consent to really standardized tests. The most amazing things that I have seen in terms of benefits, I teach an hour lecture about just the benefits of infant massage. So
Mhm.
I'll try to keep it short, but digestion, improved absorption, improved bonding and attachment, improved weight gain, which is a huge one,
Oh,
especially
great.
for those NICU babies, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And now that I don't work in the NICU anymore, I still use it as an intervention
Hmm.
for weight gain because I
Hmm.
have so many babies who struggle with weight gain after they're home.
Uh-huh.
And I think it's really a disservice that we just sort of send people home and don't really check in, you know?
Right.
So that's why I'm there on day two of life sometimes. Um, but there are, many more, including brain development, maturation of the autonomic nervous system, which is the vitals.
Yeah.
So your heart rate, your temperature regulation, just so many incredible benefits of infant massage. But one
Gosh.
of them that I share with everyone because it is such an important story is that I had a family who came to one of my workshops who was, doing regular infant massage on their baby. And I generally massage babies on their sides because that's kind of one of the things that you learn in the NICU that gravity brings the hands and feet together when you're on your side. And
Mhm.
that is such an incredibly regulating position to be in. And it's
Mhm.
also incredible for infant development. So it's a tool I use as babies are growing up, if they're not crawling on time, if they're not sitting or transitioning into and out of sitting. So side lying, I love. And in one of the positions, you are using a C shape in your hand and you bring your
Mhm.
hand over and around the shoulder and down. And every time they would feel the neck of their baby,
Uh-huh.
they would feel the muscles on the side of the neck. And one time they noticed a little bulge, like a little something.
Mhm.
And they kept massaging every night. I do recommend that you try to bring it into your routine so that it
Yeah.
becomes something that you do every day.
Mhm.
Um, and that also gives you so much practice for consenting for touch that you can then
Yes.
translate into the rest of your day. So,
Yeah.
another huge, amazing intervention tool.
Yes.
Um, but they found this bulge and they hadn't noticed it before. So, if they hadn't been massaging their baby every day, it
Mhm.
may not have come up.
Uh-huh.
And they kept massaging and they noticed it was kind of getting bigger. And so they
Okay.
went into their pediatrician, and sure enough, it was a tumor and it was benign and it was removed and it was fine. But how amazing that they were able to notice this
Amazing.
really, really quickly. I've
Yeah.
had parents find inguinal hernias because of this or things in the
Wow.
abdomen. It's really remarkable because you're getting to know your baby's body on a really deep level, not just
Yeah.
wiping them and moving on.
Right. It must be so like a really good bonding
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
And so do you give massage tips on Be Well Baby, like as
Oh,
videos that
yeah.
people can like
So,
jump in?
yeah. So there's a couple of different ways. If you have a home visit with us, you will receive infant massage training if you work with any of our physical therapists.
Hmm.
Um, and then if you are in Beyond Birth in our online platform,
Yeah.
there are multiple infant massage, um, like a mini course and then a video of every single massage tool that I use. But the
Okay,
biggest
good.
secret that I give away is there's no right way to
Hmm.
massage your baby.
Right.
Because everything that I teach you are different tools that can be amazing, that your baby might
Mhm.
love. But ultimately, the first time, this is the first kind of thing that I teach a parent with a newborn, rubbing your hands together
Hmm.
with oil, because one of the
Hmm.
studies that I read said that without oil, infant massage has all these benefits. Weight gain is great, but with oil, weight gain is even better. And
Wow.
the
Okay.
explanation that I have for that is that the glide allows circulation to increase even more, and the
Yes.
increased circulation is what is helping with the digestion and the absorption.
Yeah.
So, you rub your hands together, you say, I'm going to give you a massage. And it's less about asking with a newborn and more about letting them know.
Yeah.
Because it's not like, can I give you a massage right now?
Right. Like what?
And especially, I mean, I've seen this with families getting in the car. Like, can I put you in your car seat now? The baby's like, no, no,
Right.
thank you.
Just tell them.
So let
I'm
them
putting
know
you.
I'm putting your body in the car seat right now and I'm going to strap you in. We're going to do the
Yes.
left arm and the right arm. We're going to
Yeah.
buckle you. Let's listen for the clip. Clip. Um,
Yeah.
and just before I go into that first stroke, I I want to say that a lot of families tell me, "Oh my gosh, this is going to take so much time." And my argument is over time, creating lower cortisol levels, lower stress hormone levels in your baby, better co-regulation. So babies actually don't have the ability to self-soothe. That's like a hot take, but they can't self-soothe. They can only co-regulate. So if you are freaking out, your baby has a really hard time regulating their nervous system. So you're creating better co-regulation by communicating and offering consent and going slowly. And you are creating these cooperative caregiving experiences for your child. And
Yeah.
ultimately, that will save you time when you are letting them know that they have to get in their car seat at 15 months and they want to fight you, or when you're holding them down on the changing table, you know. And for that, I have another, we can go back to that. But there's definitely one thing that I would say. About that. So I'll go massage and then we'll go into the holding the baby down
Okay.
on the changing table. So the first thing that I teach is rubbing your hands together and then slowly, really slowly, intentionally placing your hands down on your baby's back. So they're on their tummy. I even teach you how to slowly and respectfully place your baby on their tummy when they're a newborn. Because I
Yes.
think parents are terrified to do it because they think,
Mhm.
oh, my baby, they're gonna hate tummy time. And if you can do it in a way where you're communicating the whole time
Yeah.
and you're responding to their cues, then they won't hate it. They'll never hate it.
Yeah.
So you slowly place those hands down on their back. You
Mhm.
look at them in the eye, you know,
Mhm.
and then you slowly start to glide your hand down over their diaper, or hopefully they're not even wearing a diaper,
Yeah.
naked baby, in a
Right.
really, really, really warm room with really warm hands. And
Mhm.
then you just keep going back and forth, gliding down the back.
Oh, that must feel so soothing for
It does.
them.
It feels amazing. But
Why
the
wouldn't we
first
all do that?
I know. Even if that's the only thing that you do for your
Yeah.
baby, you can do it in skin to skin with your baby here.
Yes.
You can
Oh,
even do it. This is how I used to teach it in the hospital, because both parents want to be involved. So I would
yeah.
even have a four-handed massage where it's the birthing person, the partner, like on different sides,
Yeah.
and then the birthing person and then the partner
Oh,
gliding.
so
Because
sweet.
sometimes that was the only way to touch your baby in the
Yeah.
NICU. So that's and one of the first things that you'll notice is you put your hands down. Your baby maybe has never felt a gliding sensation before in their entire life. And they'll do this like full body wiggle.
Oh,
And I take that as communication. I take
yeah.
that as them letting me know, like, oh, I don't know if I like this. And so
Right.
I don't move when they're doing that.
Okay.
I don't take my hands away because a
Hmm.
sudden taking away of your hands is
Hmm.
also a nervous system jolt,
Jarring. Yeah.
totally jarring.
Yeah.
And I just keep my hands there nice and firm. And the
Yes.
firmness really, I love to say this because parents really get it. Your baby was inside your uterus
Yeah.
for almost 10 months,
Mhm.
pushing up, and they would feel pressure on their feet. They would push
Yes.
out with their head, and they would feel pressure around their tummy. And they would push with their back and feel it on their hands. And so
Right.
having that deep pressure for them can
Hmm.
be really, really helpful. And
Yes.
you're just kind of resisting their movements.
Yeah, that totally makes sense.
Yeah.
And so that's the first thing is you basically like massage their back.
Yeah. And I make sure that when they do give me that wiggly cue, that I'm waiting until they're ready.
Hmm.
And I'm always just sort of testing, like, oh, doesn't that feel unique? You've never felt
Yeah.
that feeling before. And then once they calm again, I'll start to move and glide my hands.
Mm.
And then if they're still seeming uncomfortable or they're going, then I'll pause again. And I give them like three chances. And if it seems like they're uncomfortable, I'll change their
Yeah.
position to be on my chest. And I'm always experimenting with
Yeah.
how can I make this just the most pleasant experience for them and for the person who's giving the massage.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And that's so interesting that you would say, parents' first reaction is it's going to take so much time. But you know what, guys? You only have so much time with this baby.
Yeah.
They grow so fast, and
Yeah.
the common culture is that they leave the house by 18, which we can
Hmm.
change that. It's already being changed,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
However, like these baby years,
Yeah.
they're so they're so important and
Yeah.
so fleeting. Why not give yourself the
Yeah.
time to
Yeah.
reconnect with yourself?
And I think, parenthood is such a journey and it's really challenging. It's really, really
Yes.
challenging. It's more
Yes.
challenging than the newborn time. So enjoy the newborn time because then your baby will start talking to you and slamming
Yeah.
doors and you know?
Oh my. I feel like if you take the time to massage them and really get to know them and give yourself the time to get to know yourself, that by the time they're at that age of slamming doors and talking back to you,
Mhm.
you're better able to receive that
Yeah.
because you're so connected to this child. There is not
Yeah.
judgment, there's not fear because you've already worked through all of that.
Yeah. And maybe there is still, I think it's easy to think that there are tools that we can use in the newborn time that will, set us up for success. And I don't doubt that they do. But
Yeah.
I also acknowledge that I have some really spicy kids, and it takes everything in my power to have a regulated nervous system and to seek help.
Yeah.
I am constantly working with different coaches and different experts to
Aren't
try
we
and
all?
understand, to try to understand my own babies because they are their own people
Yes.
and they're so unique and I just want to meet them with as much compassion as I can, even if I feel the mom rage.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I do
Yes.
think this is a really good segue back to that baby who's writhing on the changing table. You have to like
Yes.
hold them down. They're like an
Yeah. Yeah.
alligator you're wrestling.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think that is a really clear communication that your
Mhm.
baby is like, you've given me autonomy in other ways. Why can't I have autonomy here? And
Mm.
if that's the case, you don't ever need to change your baby on their back again. You can have them stand and put their hands on your shoulders or your head, and it can be one of the most silly and fun things. I always have my baby stand on the changing table. I know a
Oh my
lot of people,
gosh.
that's not safe. I would say don't do that. Don't do as I
Not
do.
advocating for
Yeah,
this.
I'm not advocating for this. But this is like the space that we have, and my baby kind of loves it. She's like, I'm so tall, and she's 2 now.
Yeah.
Um, and so if I have to take off a pull up or something, I'm always doing it in standing on the changing table. But with my other kids, I had a beautiful little Montessori bar with a mirror
Mhm.
on the
Uh-huh.
wall, and they
Uh-huh.
would stand in front of this mirror with the bar. And even when they were still just learning to pull to stand at like 8, 9 months, I would change them in
Really?
standing because
Really?
that gives them so much power and autonomy. And it also helps with the transition out of
Mhm.
diapers. And I think there's this, you know, I don't know, misconception that babies should just kind of be in diapers forever.
Yeah.
And I
Right.
I hated that. I really
Right.
wanted to be able to give my children the autonomy to use the toilet if they wanted to, and they all
Yes.
did.
Yeah.
Um, and I think there's something about being changed while standing that allows a
Mhm.
baby to sort of look down and understand what's happening, especially if they like pee while they're being changed and they're like, whoa, there's water coming down my leg, and it's getting me wet. And
Yeah. Yeah.
and saying things like, oh, you're peeing. Do you feel that?
Yes.
And
Right.
waiting,
Right.
just waiting for them to acknowledge, like,
Mhm.
yeah, I feel it's wet. And this
Yeah.
this is the sign for wet, wet, wet.
Okay.
So I talked about wet a lot with kids and feeling like the the ability to identify things gave them
Hmm.
so much power and autonomy. So I would argue if your baby is writhing on the changing table, don't hold them down. Give them a situation where they can
Tools.
stand. Yeah, give
Yeah.
them tools and give them language.
And that's so interesting because now, okay, if you give your child the language for wet, then they will let you know when their diaper's wet
What?
and they're uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So then we
Or
don't
if
have to
you,
like wait around.
right, if you give them toilet, this
Yeah.
is a sign for pee. It's a T, and then you kind of shake it up here. And 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 my daughter is still at age 7 will look at me like across a crowded gym and go like this so that I know she's going to the bathroom. You know,
Yes. That's
amazing.
awesome. That's
And
amazing.
it's amazing and it's
Yeah.
incredible to have that connection with them
Yep.
that, my kids don't sign that much, but there
Yeah.
are certain signs they say I love you all the time. Especially
Yeah.
my boy who
Yeah.
is not that verbal.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
um, but
That makes it easy.
yeah, it makes it
It's
easy
not
to
so hard
express
to be like,
yourself.
okay, I love you. Like,
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Like he'll do this at school. Um, yeah.
cute. That's
It's
very,
sweet.
very sweet. Now,
Hmm.
I want to really quickly, because we're
Hmm.
time, but I want to talk about Beyond Birth Blueprint
Sure.
because on your website, you talk about Beyond Birth Blueprint and you're saying, I know my work is done when,
Mm,
right? And these whens, when I'm reading them, I'm like, oh, okay. Like, okay. So I'm going to read a few of them.
okay.
I know my work is done when you stop bracing for bad news every time you walk into an appointment.
Mm,
I
yeah.
know my work is done when you feel confident caring for your newborn, reading their communication cues, and supporting their development.
Hmm.
I know my work is done when you stop Googling in the middle of the night. But these three statements that you make, and there's more on your website, but these to me, when I read these, I'm just like, these are so true, but like, why are we doing that? Why are
Yeah.
we Googling in the middle of the night?
Yeah.
Why do we brace for bad news every time we walk into an
Hmm.
appointment? Like this is
Hmm.
a very scary place to be, and we
Hmm.
all are there at some point.
Yeah.
So like, can we talk about, I mean, I guess you can't really talk about the journey to get to this place because each person is individual.
I can give an example though. I
Please.
have one amazing client who started, well, I'll talk about two. One client who had endometriosis and adenomyosis. So these are diagnoses that she had lived with for her entire life. She had been dismissed by the medical system over and over and over again. And she let me know she was pregnant. And I was like, come on down. Like let's start. And, from the moment she found out she was pregnant, I had her coming weekly. And in ingesting all of the classes and the knowledge in Beyond Birth. And because of her autoimmune condition, she had so many layers to her
Mhm.
journey.
Mhm.
And it was really challenging for her to take in this information. But because she started at the very beginning and she was there every single week, learning and
Mhm.
being reminded about what was available to her, because there are so many classes on
Yeah,
Beyond Birth that are specific to what you are going through. And it is really easy to just kind of get lost and not do it. But that's
right.
why people come to the calls. So over the course of her pregnancy, she would brace for bad news when she went in. She
Yeah,
felt like every time she went in, she was about to hear something terrible, that her baby wasn't going to make it, or, and over the course of learning advocacy skills, learning to tune into her own intuition, learning to understand what was going on in her body
yeah,
and make some changes to her activity level, make some changes to her diet and really try and get in a good brain space for advocating for what she needed.
yeah.
She went into her appointment so confident. And that doesn't mean that every single one went well. There were appointments where she felt dismissed or she felt like she was being too much because she learned a little too much from me and, and went and asked for a little too many things.
Yeah,
Um, and also, I think it's easy to go in and say, like, I learned that I should do this, this, and this.
yeah,
And in reality, it's never that simple.
right.
it always has to be an option, and you have to kind of talk about what might make sense in the moment because we just don't know. The only thing we know for sure is we don't know how your birth is going to go.
Right.
And she ultimately ended up she was so against having Pitocin because
Hmm.
something that we talk about is that Pitocin can actually be kind of dangerous if you start it too early, and people aren't really told the risks of Pitocin.
Right. Right.
One of the things that she learned was about how the number of receptors in your body for Pitocin in order to help with contractions is limited. And so if you have too much Pitocin postpartum, it's
Hmm.
harder for your body to clamp down the uterus and stop your
Yeah.
bleeding.
Ooh.
And she was really afraid of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So she told her providers, like, no Pitocin, I don't want to get induced. And she didn't realize that there were multiple different ways of induction.
Yeah.
And because she was getting late in her pregnancy and it was time for baby to come. And so finally I was like, maybe Pitocin doesn't need to happen. Have you asked about starting with something else, And she was able to just start with miso and then have a fully unmedicated vaginal delivery,
Right.
which is not
Right.
something that anyone ever thought that she would be capable of because of the amount of
Really?
pain that she had been in
Oh
her whole
my
life.
gosh.
Yeah,
The human body is so miraculous.
miraculous. And I
It's
had the privilege of being there postpartum to
yes.
help with the latch.
Yeah.
I actually drove to Seattle to see her. It was a whole thing. But I was so excited because I got into the room. The nurse was about to give the baby glucose. And in this like postpartum haze, she was like, wait, can you tell me the benefits of the glucose? Can you tell me the risks?
Yeah.
Is there anything else we could try? Like she was going through the acronym that I taught
Wow.
her to
Yes.
advocate and to understand an intervention. And
Yes.
ultimately she was like, great, let's give the baby glucose, And it was
Wow.
I was like crying, tears streaming down my face as I was watching her do this because I didn't have
Yes.
to say a word. She had it inside her because she did it for her whole pregnancy. So
Yes.
that's it. And then breastfeeding was really hard and postpartum was, there's just so many layers and I was able to be there with her the entire time. So that was amazing and powerful.
Yeah.
I also had someone who started Beyond Birth before actually getting pregnant because she and her partner were going through IUI
Hmm.
and a bunch of different IUI cycles didn't work and didn't work
Right.
and didn't
Right.
work. And, IUI has a very low success rate. And so it took a while, but she was
Which
there
is
learning.
perfect.
Yes.
Perfect. Yeah.
She was there learning everything every single week,
Yeah.
learning about how I recommend you hang out in your body in pregnancy so that your baby has a good chance of being in a good position for birth.
Yeah.
It's something that we don't really talk about. We just say, oh, well, we don't know. There's no way to predict, but there are things to do to
Yeah.
move your body in a way
Right.
that will give your baby space to
Yeah.
have a successful delivery. And this person had at 39 years old, had the most amazing home birth delivery I have ever heard in my life.
Oh, great. Yes. So Beyond Birth Blueprint is actually really helpful for people when they're considering having a baby.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
totally.
Perfect.
And I think I mean, that's not to say that we don't have people join postpartum too,
Of
because
course. Right.
there's so much about feeding your baby and your baby's development and torticollis and just so many different aspects of what I do as a lactation consultant and physical
Yeah.
therapist.
Yeah.
And and there's so many pieces of this that
Yeah.
that can break down at any given point. But I think the best place to start is preconception, if possible.
Yeah. Yeah. And then if not, then once you find out you're pregnant, then join
Yeah.
the blueprint and get all the information to
Hmm.
support your birth
And
and
you're
for better.
postpartum.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
had I had a couple who the partner really didn't love the idea of doing all of these hours and hours of hanging out with me. And
Why
so I
not?
created a birth partner course where the videos are relatively short and it's just what you need to know about
Great.
every step of the way.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
amazing. Okay, so
So
that's
that's,
found on your
yep,
website as well.
it's all in Beyond Birth. If you're
Great.
a member, you have access to every course that I've ever created.
Oh, that's fantastic. BeWellBabyPDX.com.
Yeah. Or bewellbaby.org.
Okay,
Mhm.
great. Oh my gosh, that's incredible. So good. You have so many resources. Thank you so much for taking your time and letting us know about consent with babies.
You're welcome. And I think if there's one thing that families could do just to prepare for this is really kind of remember your baby is a whole human and remember that especially if you have friends and family who are like, "Oh, let me hold the baby. I'm going to hold the," like passing your baby around, that there is a world in which you can say, "She's not into it." You know, and
Yeah.
you can start to, because you are paying attention to your baby, you can start to speak for her and remembering that your baby is an extension of you, especially for those first 40 days. And so if you're uncomfortable with your baby being held by someone else, so is your baby.
Yes. Right. And use your voice.
Yeah.
It's okay
Yeah.
to say no. It's okay to say no
Yeah.
to your own mother, your
Yeah.
own sister,
Yeah. It's
right? We have
also
to
it's
advocate for ourselves.
yeah, and it's also okay to not say any words and just reach for your baby and take them back. I think it's hard.
Right.
It's really hard to use your voice. And when you're having a feeling that you're like, no, I want to be holding my baby. I remember one of my clients said, my baby only smiles with my mother-in-law, and it's driving me crazy.
Oops.
And I was like, you know what? Then as soon as, also, first of all, your baby's smiling at someone that's not you because they don't register you as being different than them
Mhm.
yet. If you birthed that baby, they think you're the same person for a really
Yeah.
long time.
Right. Right.
And so if they're smiling at someone else, it's a biological survival mechanism that they're trying
Mm,
to, you know, be a sweet little baby so that they're not
yeah.
eaten, right?
Right.
So
Right. Right.
so know
Perfectly.
that, and also know that the next time your baby is smiling at your mother-in-law or your own mom and you're feeling like, ugh, my baby never smiles at me, just like slowly go over and scoop them up and say, it's time for me to hold my baby. Or don't say anything, just walk
Yeah.
away. Like, I think that
Hilarious.
I think it's really, really okay. And remembering that, especially if you had a baby in the hospital, for any reason, remembering that it is your baby. I think it's easy to forget that this is your
Yes.
baby.
Yes.
Especially the hospital is, the nurses will even say my baby when they're referring to your baby sometimes, and it can be really hard. It's
Yeah.
and we all know it's coming from a place of love and
Yes.
care, and
Yes.
also it can be hard to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely.
So,
Yes. Definitely go into the Be Well Baby to learn to just
mm,
advocacy.
yeah. Yeah, advocacy is really important. And again, that one thing to do is as soon as you put your hands on your baby, just notice. Take one moment to just notice what they do, and do their shoulders come down a little bit and they calm with you, or do their shoulders come up and you're like, oh, maybe my hands are a little cold and maybe I should warm them up, or, just really noticing and remembering that if you see any of the signs I talked about, like your baby's looking away or moving away from you, another one that I love is a stop sign. So babies will finger splay like this, and it actually means, ugh, whatever's going on is just a little bit too much for my brain right now. I'd like to find my boundary. Can I have my boundary? And so if you see that, you can just give them your finger to hold on to, use their grasp
Oh my
reflex, and then bring
gosh.
their hand back to midline. And it can just be this really easy way to remind them where their body is in space.
That that is a really good tip.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're so welcome.
Thank you so much. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we end our time together?
No, I think that we've covered it all. We've done a lot today.
I think we've done a lot. There's so much more, but we've done a lot.
Thank you so much, Belinda, for the opportunity. It was a
Thank
pleasure
you.
talking to you.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too.